But my biggest fear is, and one thing that I've seen in the litigation world is that I have noticed there's a very high potential for fraud with the pure lack of regulation. Here's my question to you two that know this a little bit more. How do you feel if we deregulate or we don't have any regulation over crypto? What do you think should be done to protect novice investors like myself?
The federal government currently doesn't have a policy governing it, and it's leaving it off to the states. So I think what's going to happen is going to be kind of similar to how like California takes the lead with emissions and fuel efficiency. New York is doing that, but with crypto. So like the New York Department of Financial Services is taking itself as like, well, if the federal government's not going to do it, we're going to do it. And, they're home of the stock exchange. So it makes sense that they would be on the cutting edge, kind of like Delaware and business law.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Only Lawsuits podcast. Today we have a very good friend on the podcast, Jesse Diaz. Jesse is an insurance attorney who has just started his own firm. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that introduction. Yeah, Diaz Litigation. I do homeowners insurance claims and property claims.
Jesse does a practice area that it's not really, the most broadcasted, I'd say. You don't see him on billboards as much as you do some of the auto accident attorneys. Mm-hmm. But I will say the nuances dealing with homeowners claims are very, very intricate. And Jesse, that's one of the reasons why me and Jesse actually reconnected recently is started his own practice. And, we handle those cases as well. But I wanted to make sure we ended up getting some other attorneys to help me. And that's actually one of the reasons why I reached out to Jesse.
Yeah, thanks.
And we're going to leave his details for you guys to follow in the text below. But we want to jump into a pretty big topic that has kind of inundated the news as of late, and that is the Hunter Biden pardon by our boy Sleepy Joe. So, Mike, I'm going to let you get this started. What do you think of the pardon so far?
So when I heard of the pardon, I'll be honest with you. Recently I had the baby, and he's my little son, and every single night I cuddle with him and I put him on my chest and I just look at him and tell him I'm going to beat him. But, I know I'm lying.
If I ever become president one day and you find yourself in any sort of criminal situation, I'll pardon you too.
Hell yeah, dude.
I mean, it'd be weird if you didn't, you know what I mean?
Sorry, we're having a telephone call.
Yeah. Also, the screen doesn't say only lawsuits.
Yeah, we'll fix that. We'll fix that later.
Cool. Oh, well, you know what? It
doesn't even really show up.
It's not on any of the angles right now either. Right, so cool. Yeah.
We'll just edit this part out.
Yeah, we'll edit this part out.
Yeah.
All right. So ask that question again.
So basically, we were talking about the Hunter Biden situation.
Yeah.
Right. And what's your opinion on it thus far?
So yeah, like I was saying, I have a baby now, and I understand what it is to kind of like have a child and have to, like, this is my baby, right? So like from a standpoint of being a father, I understand you want to do what's in your best interest for your child, right? And granted, Joe is like 70, almost 80 years old, and Hunter is a grown ass man that is old enough to do crack, play with guns and hookers and all the crazy things that we've heard over the past years. My reaction was really simple. Like, I think I was pretty disappointed in the fact that he did not allow the justice system to prevail, per se. I feel like this is just another example of, the rich and the politically connected getting away with it, similar to other individuals we're made aware of, as recently as last year with that famous French actor we all know, Jussie Smollett.
Jussie Smollett, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesse, what do you think?
So
Jesse?
honestly, here's my hot take on it. If we're being really honest about it, I think that everyone would probably do the exact same thing. If the shoe was on the other foot, it kind of reminds me of that like Showtime show, Your Honor, which season 2 was terrible. Season one was great. And the premise of that show is this judge in New Orleans, very powerful man, his son gets distracted and he kills someone while driving, right? And the judge, walks his son to the police station to do the right thing, to turn himself in. But then he realizes that the kid that he accidentally killed while he was driving impaired or distracted was actually a mob lord's son. So he thought to himself, if I let my son turn himself in, I'm just killing my son because this gangster is going to be connected, and surprisingly is a trip and fall and get stabbed 20 times, right? So like maybe not to the same exaggeration as that show, but kind of I can see a world where, you know, Trump supporters are extremely loyal, and within their camp, there is a whole group of people that are conspiracy theorists that really think this whole Burisma thing, there's this whole like laptop, this whole Biden crime family stealing our elections, all these things. I can see a world where if I knew that my son was going to be in a place where I can't protect him, even if my son is a screw up, admittedly so, if he's going to be in a place like I can't protect him, I wouldn't want him to be there, especially if I had the option. You know, like if you put him in federal prison, what is to say some person that believes in these conspiracy theories is not there and, you know, kills him, you know, and then I would never be able to forgive myself because I'm like, okay, I know my son is an idiot. And I did allow him to be convicted. So that is still out there. It's still in his record. I did let the evidence speak for itself, and that in its way is a part of the punishment. And he did go to prison for the past few months. Obviously not exactly what his sentence was, but I feel like as like, you know, as a parent, would you have done any different? I don't think you would have done any different. Now, politically, do I think that was fair, ethical, responsible? No. But I also don't blame him. You know, it's kind of hard to blame him.
I think that's an excellent take. I agree with almost every point that you brought forward. I think if you're being very, very pragmatic and you're looking at it from like a family man perspective, you know, like me being a father, you being a father, we would probably do the same thing for our kids. This isn't to say that Hunter Biden didn't put himself in like precarious situations, you know, doing the drugs. I mean, I think that the Biden administration, if anything, they showed how much power and sway they had, or the Democratic establishment in general showed how much political sway they had with really suppressing a lot of the information that was originally released about him, especially when all of the stuff about his laptop came out, right? And another quick segue I'll say is that even if you look at Donald Trump, during Donald Trump's previous administration, a lot of Republicans, they're being very, very critical. But one of Trump's major pardons during his last administration was the pardon of Jared Kushner's father, Charles Kushner, and Charles disbarred attorney, embezzlement of millions of dollars of funds. And you know, that laundry list goes on, but immediately we're supposed to forget about that.
But no, you know, I agree. Look, I agree with Jesse and you both. Like, I think, is it something that he should do morally? Yes. Politically, I think it was suicide. But frankly, you know, he's on his way out, and he's literally probably got not many years left on this earth because he's just old as shit. But one of the biggest problems, I think, is that where I really drew a huge problem with it was when he actually pardoned from like the years of 2014 up through like today. So literally it's for crimes known or unknown based on my understanding or the language, the way he worded it. That's where I have a huge problem. And that's what I think should be limited, because here's the problem, right? Technically, he's pardoned for crimes we know and we don't know. And there's a reason why Biden's not stupid. Biden knows why he worded it that way. More importantly, his advisors that advised him that he should do it this way did it for a particular reason. This screams that there is more to this story, and he's trying to limit his exposure to that story. Because look, there's a famous text that came out with all of this stuff, where Hunter Biden was texting someone and mentioned, quote unquote, the big guy. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there was ever, a solid, acknowledgement that Joe Biden was the big guy. But when your dad's the vice president, who do you think the big guy is going to be? This is common sense. Mm-hmm. And then tell me this. How does someone that is legitimately, not saying a drug addict can't be functional and, end up on the board of Burisma and make millions of dollars, but how does Hunter Biden end up on the board of Burisma making millions of dollars when he's totally unqualified, has no qualifications for that job, and all of a sudden he gets pardoned for literally the time span that covers that sort of stuff? So I've been paying attention to this, and, it just reeks. It reeks. It's just like it just brings back memories of the Hillary's emails getting destroyed, and all of a sudden it's like you really, really understand, and you really start judging the political landscape even more. It really makes me hate the fact that, this is allowed. Like, I just don't understand it. I wish there was a way that. Do I think he did it right? The right thing as a father? Yes. Do I think it's the right thing that he should do? And I think the American people are owed a lot more, and he should be ashamed of himself as the president of the United States.
No, I agree with that. I think that ultimately on both sides of the aisle, so whether it's Trump or Biden, Republican or Democrat, I think that political pardons are outdated, and in my opinion, I feel unnecessary. They've been around since the monarchy, when a criminal or somebody that was accused of doing something pretty egregious against the crown does a favor for the king, or or any sort of favor toward the crown back in the days of the monarchy, would allow the king to then say, hey, I give this person a pardon. Yeah. And now transitioning into a democracy, I feel that political pardons are just a way for the super rich to get off with basically a slap on the wrist, to make sure that nothing is on record, no matter what they were accused of prior.
So about that, Josh, so I love that you said that, because it kind of reminded me when you said that, this was something that is from basically the fealty days, political favors and whatnot. Trump did the same thing. And not to glance over what Mike said, I think there's Nepo babies on all sides. I mean, we can talk about how the Trump administration puts family members literally everywhere for jobs that are not really qualified for, that pay crazy amounts of money. But Kodak Black is one of the people that Trump pardoned during his presidency. And Kodak Black was found guilty for essentially the same thing that Hunter Biden was found guilty was, which was lying in order to get a weapon, right? This whole thing about Hunter Biden, obviously there's the Burisma stuff that charges haven't been brought forth, but specifically for the thing that he was found guilty of, which is essentially lying in order to get a gun, Kodak Black did the same exact thing, but the only reason why people care is because he's Hunter Biden. But if we remember when Trump was running for president, guess who was a person that was stomping hard for Trump? It was Kodak Black, and also Lil Wayne. But Kodak Black, another person who also pardoned. So if you're thinking about political tit for tat, and it's okay, well, this is just, we really should care about drug addicts and their access to weapons. And of course, preach. Obviously, I don't think anyone disagrees with that. But if you're going to be hyper offended as like, oh, the level of the crime that was forgiven, essentially. Trump did the exact same thing.
Yeah, no,
but for political gain versus I love my son kind of argument.
And that's my point. Like, I don't think any president should be allowed to have sweeping power like this. I think despite the party, I take the parties outside of it. This is just something that literally a president should not be allowed to do. I think, with the Kodak Black stuff, look, I think if you committed I think this brings a bigger picture, forward. I think, do we need, criminal reform in the criminal justice system, right? That's one thing that I've always thought about. Like, look, I think people should go be charged and do time if they did the crime and they're found guilty by a jury of their peers, right? I think that's the reason why we have the government set up the way we have it. That's the reason why we do things in the country the way we do it. But I think there needs to be a way to kind of forgive people per se. So I think the pardon is that concept of forgiving, because you do have to apply for a pardon from what I understand. But I think the biggest thing is I don't think we should need a pardon. I think we should have a system built out in the criminal justice system to allow people that are upstanding citizens that don't commit crimes and change their life. We truly take into account the system, that the justice system, to rehabilitate someone, just like we as attorneys are. Listen, there's attorneys out there that have murdered people, or broken severe crimes. Look, when I was younger, I used to break every single traffic law in the world. And when I applied to the Florida bar, I had to literally tell them, like, look, I did all this shit. I have multiple a very lengthy traffic history. I wasn't arrested. I didn't do anything that bad. I no DUIs or anything, but still I did not respect the traffic laws. But, thankfully the Florida bar saw that ever since, I stopped being an idiot and started doing things the right way, I rehabilitated my character. And I think that's the most that was one of the most appreciative things I found when it came to the bar application process, is they actually allow you to rehabilitate yourself despite your past. Because I think, look, your past makes you into the person you are in the future. And I think criminals, should have that same ability. You shouldn't be branded a criminal for the rest of your life. You should be able to show, hey, I did shit in the past. I fucked up, but I'm not that person anymore.
Well, I think with the political pardon system right now, a lot of people have an issue with the fact that it's usually benefiting people who have a much higher influence or are coming from a very, very wealthy background. And for the everyday citizen, they are rubbed the wrong way because these pardons are usually just benefiting, the super rich. And for somebody like you who's talking about rehabbing in maybe the right way, rehabbing in the right manner, going through the steps necessary in order to enact change on your own, with some of these people that are being pardoned, whether it's Charles Kushner, whether it's Hunter Biden, whether it's Kodak Black, they didn't take any of that necessary time to do that. They were immediately just forgiven of their sins, like right out the gate. Yep. And I think that's what rubs people the wrong way.
Meanwhile, Julian Assange is a criminal.
Exactly.
Right. Him, I would pardon. I don't think he did anything wrong.
And I don't think he did anything wrong. That's really well said.
It's like, oh, let's expose the fact that we're spying on everybody, violating everyone's Fourth Amendment rights. He's a criminal. He's like, is he? Or is he just like actually a patriot?
Yeah. I mean, but that's the other thing. Like, there's wasn't it who else was it? Snowden that did the same thing where he exposed
Edward Snowden did the same exact thing.
Yeah, he's the guy that pulled or woman now that pulled the data from the servers and whatnot. So there was some like laws that they broke, but
did it benefit like if those if those people didn't break those laws, we would still be in the dark about so many things.
We would
exactly.
be. And that's a really great segue into our next subject, right? Because right now we're talking about digital identity. That's something that Julian Assange brought up. That's something that Edward Snowden brought up, and that's something that has been also dominating headlines recently with digital property, Bitcoin, XRP, Ethereum, all of like these cryptocurrencies going on the current run that they are. So Jesse, why don't you get us started on this?
Oh yeah. Not to sound like a bro, but of course crypto, yay. XRP baby, to the moon. So XRP is, currently entangled in litigation. They actually won their case, but it's actually being appealed. Basically, the gist of that coin is that they're being targeted for being a commodity versus a currency. But long story short, I did like how the new administration, Trump coming in, he does want to loosen up some of that regulation on crypto and make the U.S. government invested in that. XRP, and we can talk more about it, but XRP it actually has actual function and utilization capabilities as opposed to being a store of value. This is not paid sponsorship by Ripple or XRP, but there's some interesting things coming out in the horizon that Ripple and XRP can make monetary transactions and those fees cheaper and quicker. And it's just all benefits from what I can see. But I'm wondering what you guys think about that revolution.
So I'll be honest with you. I don't know. But I do know.
Mike is a Dogecoin investor.
Shiba Inu coin.
Mike has touched upon it earlier episodes, how he bought his last Tundra with Doge profits.
Listen,
Did you really?
Yeah, dude.
That's wild.
I bought Doge when it was like dirt, and it still is dirt, but it was like a little bit better of dirt.
Oh yeah.
And I just went and just was like, I cashed out. I was like, what am I going to do with all these thousands of dollars, which really wasn't many thousands, but I was like, for the $50 that I threw in and I got thousands. I was like, oh, I just went on Facebook Market, which I'm a addict for. Mm-hmm. And I found this 2006 Tundra and I left on my lunch break and literally just told, I'm going to go to lunch. Told everyone I'm going to lunch, showed up with a like old ass Tundra, 2006 Tundra.
But you only paid $50 if you think about it.
No, I paid. Yeah. Well, realistically, out of my pocket.
Yeah, $50. I mean, your profits, right? But still,
dude, I was so excited. I missed that truck.
Well, look, I'm a big crypto guy. I've been pretty invested into the market since 2017. I'm also an XRP bro.
Hey.
So to give some context to what Jesse talked about with XRP. Cryptocurrency's entire model is based off of being off the grid. It's basically, and that's the most simple way of putting it. It's digital property that's outside of the government's reach, which is why a lot of the industry is non-regulated right now or unregulated. And XRP, it's been gunning for a breakout for a while, but you've had our current SEC chair, who will be gone with the incoming Trump administration, Gary Gensler, who has essentially gone to war on crypto over the last 4 years. Mm-hmm. So hopefully with their new placement, which is Trump's nominee, Paul Atkins, who's supposedly very, very crypto friendly, we're going to see a market that is completely unregulated. I think crypto is exciting for a lot of potential investors because if you're following the laws of investment, most people, when they're making an investment into, say, a stock or say like an ETF or index fund, you're pretty hopeful that if you're getting gains between like 8 and 15% a year, amazing, that like you're making really great money. And that's on any investment. That could even include real estate. But with crypto, as Mike's story explains perfectly, you're seeing exponential gains unlike any other investment period. When a market is, when you're making a $50 investment and that $50 investment could then be worth $5,000, you're looking at like a 10,000% gain within a short span of like a few months.
Well, and see, that's one of the reasons why, like, look, I'm very, very, very conservative when it comes to like investing into stocks and any of these things. I was raised as, if I can't physically hold it or see it, it isn't real. So like literally when I buy these stocks and I buy whatever I buy, I forget I don't even know what I have. Like, you can ask me, what do you want? I'm like, I have no idea. The reason is I truly don't. I literally just go on this stupid app on my phone and put money in it and literally just shift money around. And I don't really know what I'm buying. But my biggest fear is, and one thing that I've seen in the litigation world is that I have noticed, there's a very high potential for fraud with the pure lack of regulation. So, like, here's my question to you two that know this a little bit more. How do you feel, if we deregulate or we don't have any regulation over crypto, what do you think should be done to protect, novice investors like myself?
I'll let Jesse get started on this because I have a story that perfectly encapsulates it.
Yeah. So as far as that's concerned, the federal government currently doesn't have a policy governing it, and it's leaving it off to the states. So I think what's going to happen is going to be kind of similar to how like California takes the lead with emissions and fuel efficiency. New York is doing that, but with crypto. So like the New York Department of Financial Services is taking itself as like, well, if the federal government's not going to do it, we're going to do it. And, they're home of the stock exchange. So it makes sense that they would be the on the cutting edge, kind of like Delaware in business law. But I think that if you're looking at it as an investment, this isn't an NFT. This isn't actual BS, but I get the fear of an NFT. At one point they were worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now they're an actual joke. And I think that's how we all felt when we first heard about Bitcoin 10 years ago, 20, or when it first came out like 15 years ago. But I think that and this is why I talk about XRP, because XRP is not just like Bitcoin, where it's like we just believe it's worth money, therefore it is worth money because everybody keeps buying it, so we're all believing that it's worth something like art. But when it comes to XRP, it's used for banking transactions. And if you look at the market capitalization of it, I think it's the third most purchased coin out there. Even though right now I haven't double checked today, but I'm sure it's under $3. Compare that to Ethereum, that's $1,800. Compare that to Bitcoin, which is like last time I checked $104,000. So you look at that and you think to yourself, well, those other coins, well, Ethereum is actually used for contracts, but like Bitcoin is just used because I believe in it. But XRP actually has a purpose, and it's actually currently being used by hundreds of smaller banks, and Japan is actually taking a closer look into maybe using it officially for all their foreign banking transactions. They're gonna make a decision about it. I believe it's supposed to be Q2 of next year. But I think that if you are smart enough to look at what the companies are looking at, like if it is a coin that mutual funds are willing to invest in, you're probably fine. Obviously, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial planner or anything like that. But if you're asking me for my gut feeling, I think that you should look at is it useful? And if it's not useful and it's not Bitcoin, you probably shouldn't do it. Unless it's Dogecoin, and then you should ride it out, right? But if it's outside of that, like, unless it's like a meme, and if it's a meme, it's a joke. This is just, we're GameStopping it up right now. But if it's outside of that, you think like, oh well, what does it have a use, and is there a market for it, and are people adapting it? And if people are adapting it, then I would look into putting some money in there. And like you said, you put $50 in, and then you got yourself a used Tundra. If you have $50 and you put it in Shiba Inu coin, which is a meme coin and worth nothing, you'll probably be a millionaire if it hits $2. So it's low risk, high reward. Is how I feel about it.
Yeah, and it's kind of like we obviously have legalized sports betting here in Florida now with the Hard Rock app, and this isn't a paid sponsorship from Hard Rock, or please don't pick up gambling. This shit is. Gambling is horrible. But listen, I'll tell you what, I have during the last Super Bowl, I remember, whenever we get groups of people together at my house, we'll sit down and we'll jokingly gamble dumb bets, right? So I remember I bet on the game ending in a tie, and everyone was like, "You're an idiot. Like, the game can end in a tie." I'm like, "Yes, it can. It can end in a tie and go to overtime." And I was like, "You're the idiot for not thinking that." So long story short, I made that stupid ass bet. I bet like $3 on the game ending in a tie. And I ended up winning. So, but in like, I do like gambling. There's a very big risk in it. Like you gotta know your limits. You gotta have that, like you said, Jesse, a gut feeling on what you're doing, and you gotta kind of put a check and balance. But like, I think if you don't take it seriously, and it's something you should take seriously, but don't take it serious to the point where you're gonna risk your next month's rent on it. This isn't the strip club. You can't just throw all your money at something that a stripper that tells you she loves you, and you happen to get pregnant, kind of like Hunter Biden.
Hunter Biden.
Oh man,
well,
this guy's catching strays.
But he's gonna be catching strays for a while.
Oh, not with this pardon.
Hey, the one thing I don't think Biden can pardon is that child support, though.
Oh man.
Mike gave really great advice. I think like with any sort of investment that you make, I mean, crypto is a gamble, but it harkens back to that saying, don't invest what you're not willing to lose. Mm-hmm. And I think with crypto or any investment in general, even if like you're betting money, you can't put yourself in a situation where you're losing more than like you're willing to. To circle back around to what Jesse was talking about with XRP, to give people some context, if they still don't understand why it makes sense for these banks to make transactions using XRP as a currency, is when you're making large-scale transactions that these financial institutions are making, what ends up happening is a lot of that money ends up being held in escrow or being held up by the financial institutions themselves for a certain period of time to make sure that the money clears properly. XRP, what makes it beneficial for a lot of like these bigger financial institutions is that the transaction is instantaneous. So you have immediate access to this currency. And this is a tangible currency of value that is that's of course like people who are investing in the hopes of like going up, and you don't want your money being held in, say, like an African currency or a currency, say, like in the Middle East,
right
or
now.
say even Argentina, where the currency is deflationary, where it's losing a lot of value over that set period of time. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why a lot of these digital currencies are kind of coming to the forefront, and they are gaining a lot of popularity. Yeah. And invest wisely.
I'm gonna rope this in the simplest way. Listen, if you want to buy something from me from Facebook Market, I ain't taking. You better Zelle me right then and there, so I can see that shit pop up in my bank account. So whatever you guys are talking about, I don't even want to know.
Well, actually, before I forget, so I told you I'd give you guys a story. So I had a terrible 2022. When I'm talking, when I'm talking about what could go wrong, did go wrong. That was my 2022. And one thing that Mike brought up that I think it's important for a lot of people to recognize is that as exciting as cryptocurrency is in general, it is still unregulated. So there are benefits to that, but there are also negatives. I had the unfortunate reality of having my finances tied to two platforms that went bottom up, Celsius and Voyager. And this was where both of these platforms were where 2/3 of my crypto portfolio were. And this is investments all the way back to 2017. And in 2022, when the crypto market went through that crash because of a currency called Terra Luna, upended the entire crypto market in general, I lost everything on those platforms. So it was pretty devastating for me because that was money that like I had been putting in over time, treating it as a personal investment, putting money into all of these different altcoins, heavily investing into Bitcoin and Ethereum, and I ended up losing everything. And
what was that? I don't remember. Was that the whole thing with what was that Sam Bankman-Fried guy?
Sam Bankman-Fried. FTX was another platform that also went bottom up. There were quite a few platforms that went bottom up. So God's good in some ways because none of my XRP was on any of those platforms, which is great. But I lost that. Look, to the people watching at home, I lost everything. It was pretty devastating. I'm not going to give you guys an exact figure, but it was a pretty substantial sum, and it's a pretty eye-opening thing because when you lose money in a bank, the bank with the SEC there, or I think the SEC or the FTC, they're guaranteeing that you're insured up to $250,000. So that's the thing that banks have going for them, right? When you have your money in a bank, it should technically be safe because you're insured the amount that you lose. Having my money on both of those platforms meant that I was not insured at all, and all that money fizzled up into thin air.
You gotta give everyone a reaction to this next question. Okay. This is gonna fuck.
Jesse, should we follow Josh for more financial advice? It's like, nah.
Did you lose any money to Sam Bankman-Fried, Jesse?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
FTX?
Don't answer. Don't answer. I'm gonna ask both of you this question. I want you to react accordingly.
Gotcha.
Knowing that Sam Bankman-Fried, you know what he looks like? He looks like a troll looking dude with a afro.
Yes.
Or whatever he has. Knowing that he was using your money to have sex parties, how does that make you feel?
Well, my money was not in FTX.
Mine was.
So my money was not in FTX, but I guarantee you the CEOs of Voyager and Celsius, they were probably doing the same thing.
Yeah, honestly, at least someone had fun with it. So better it, you know what I mean? Like Wolf of Wall Street up. I don't know, whatever. I mean,
man. It was
in general.
I mean, I would if I lost money to the Wolf of Wall Street dude,
yes.
and I knew he was using my money to like do midget tossing, I would be like, all right, cool, that's money well spent, dude.
No.
No, I'm just saying. I'm joking.
But honestly, that's kind of similar, and it kind of goes what you were talking about earlier. Like I wasn't like you, Josh. That was like making like significant investments. I was just putting in what I thought would be okay for me to lose, and then calling it a day. Kind of like how someone would just bet on whatever football game is on this Sunday. But just hoping that it will skyrocket, right? Kind of like that $50 kind of investment vibe. But same thing with like. I forget his name from the Wolf of Wall Street. It's like these people were betting on penny stocks. Now they didn't know they were betting on penny stocks, but penny stocks are basically like gambling. And what that guy did was also illegal. But it's kind of like, okay, you're putting some money to have a giant upside. Well, you should probably know, and maybe the burden really isn't on the consumer. It's definitely on the person trying to sell it on them. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like if someone's telling you like, hey, Jess, give me $100,000 and in 4 months I'll give you $1 billion. That sounds like a scam. It's probably a scam. And then if you are looking at like a young startup company that's offering you great investment on a penny stock or some meme crypto coin that's worth a thousandth of a penny, if you want to have fun and throw some money in there for the what if factor, cool. But other than that, you should probably talk to a financial advisor or invest in something like more legitimate, like Bitcoin or XRP or Ethereum.
Yeah. And dude, I mean, look, I just cashed out Dogecoin like 2 weeks ago.
I know. Mike made a decent profit off of the current Dogecoin run.
But someone was like, yo, Doge is on the rise again. I was like, oh yeah, log in, sell.
But you know what? That's a great segue. That's a great segue to our last topic, which is Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency, spearheaded by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. So something that we were talking about briefly before the podcast started was how politicians on both sides of the aisle are on board with Doge. and it's because of some of the stuff that Elon and Vivek have been discussing outright. So, Mike, why don't you get us started?
So yeah, I've been watching. I mean, I'm a proponent of limiting, of holding the government accountable for what they do. And I think one of the things that, I'm hearing a lot of positive reception for are people actually starting to want this. I think it's the Department of Defense or one of the government agencies that spend billions of tax dollars. They failed an audit for like the 7th year in a row. There's no reason why we should be failing audits for 7 years in a row and nothing happens.
Especially the Department of Defense.
I heard there was one thing where they spent like $12,000 or $9,000 on a chair. Someone, the people on Fox and Friends made the joke that it was the chair to get Biden up the stairs.
So honestly, here's my other spin on like devil's advocate here. I think that audits are necessary, right, to make sure that we're not overspending and more importantly that people aren't embezzling. That's number one. However, when it comes to the Department of Defense, it needs to be kind of closed loop. I don't think that whatever audit there is out there should be public to anyone because, yeah, we're laughing about like a $10,000 chair and $100,000 toilet seat. It's the government runs projects and operations that are off book, right? We have the CIA, we have the NSA, we have our special forces, we have side projects, and I don't want this to be a situation where a global competitor could look at our audit and then kind of deduce like, oh, okay, based on this, it looks like America is spending X amount of money on like hypersonic missiles. Or so like, oh, it looks like America is focusing money on this other program over here. Maybe we should focus in on lasers, which is a thing they're actually doing. But or drones, or like, oh, they're buying X amount of, so there are some things that I do think, especially if it's like something that's going to be consumed by the masses, that they have to say like, oh yeah, I definitely spent $10,000 on one office chair. When in reality, what they were doing is building a base somewhere in like Turkey, and we don't want to put on the books like, oh yeah, we're building more airfields in Vietnam.
Yeah. I mean, but at the end of the day, like, look, all I want to know is if I'm giving. So the way I see it is, if we as taxpayers, we are giving the government our money. Mm-hmm. There's certain things that I don't think should be allowed, and I think a lot of like the earmarks that. And all the wasteful spending that gets thrown into bills in the last minute. The fact that, the federal government, you can go and throw a bill and it becomes a law, and you can throw it on the floor for a vote, and it's thousands of pages, thick, and literally you have like 24 hours to read it. I think that's insane. And so that's what I really think. But I do agree, Jesse. Like, I don't think people should know where we're spending our money, what we're spending it. I just think we need to account for the money that's being given to these agencies. Because listen, that $9,000 chair better be super comfortable. I paid like $100 for this chair on Facebook Market.
I can see both ends of the spectrum. I do agree with Jesse in the sense that there are a lot of projects that the government is working on. I'm not like, there are conspiracy theories. I'm not saying that some of the conspiracy theories that people have like don't warrant some type of merit or don't have some sort of merit of truth. But in regards to the Department of Defense, I'm not saying that they have to be, completely anal in all of the details that they're tracking, but I think it's a broader topic of what Mike is talking about, which is a lot of redundancy and a lot of waste, right? And with the Department of Defense, maybe not filling their 7th audit in a row, it wouldn't be as big of an issue if there wasn't so many issues with other federal agencies and stuff not getting done. I think me as a taxpayer, the issues that I have are the roads never being fixed, construction constantly taking forever, doing any sort of task through the government that outright is going to take a very, very long time, because there's going to be like a large backlog of things that they need to do prior. When I look at public transit, right, in major cities, whether that be Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, you're paying all of this money, and none of that stuff is getting done in a timely manner. So especially with them wanting to raise taxes, look, it'd be different if like I knew my tax money was being spent wisely. I feel like my tax dollars are constantly being wasted and they're asking us for more.
Well, here's the thing. I know if I fail my audit, I ain't gonna get a pardon, right? Like, listen, I'm gonna hold you accountable the same. I want someone to go to jail if you fail your audit. That's what I'm saying, and I don't want no pardon.
Yeah,
I want someone to go to jail just like I would, because I'm just saying. I look, I monitor the same, and I remember when I lived in New York a long time ago. I think it was Fulton. They were redoing the Fulton station, and they were talking about like the bathrooms in Battery Park, or one of those bullshit parks New York decides to build and spend millions on.
Battery Park is very pretty.
But this bathroom cost like millions of dollars. I was like, dude, I'm about to go take the biggest in that bathroom, because this is the most wealthiest bathroom you'll ever be in your entire life. Come to find out, the homeless people are probably just hanging out there.
I mean, I think you guys are definitely right. It does boil down to like a lack of trust that we have in our country. Because if you look at it at the kind of like the modeled student, like if you look at the Scandinavian countries, everybody talks about how they're like well run and everything. They have crazy high taxes, but they also have very low unemployment. They have very low, homelessness, people with like housing instability. They have free education. They have free healthcare. So like those countries, even though they're getting taxed higher than we are, they're not mad, because it's not like how you're saying. It's like, well, the road's always broken. Why would a bathroom cost $1 million? It's like if I think we all probably would agree that if our taxes stayed the same or a little bit better, but we knew for a fact that our schools aren't bad and our roads are great and our first responders are getting taken care of and the teachers are taken care of and everything was nice and clean, I don't think we'll complain, because I mean that's literally why people move into gated HOA neighborhoods, is because they want it to be squeaky clean and they're intentionally paying a monthly subscription or quarterly subscription to live somewhere that is artificially nice. So I think like if America was, what we would want it to be, or I don't know if it ever was, but like what we want it to be, I think that we would be okay with current taxes or even slightly higher.
Well, that's a great point. Like an HOA is the simplest point. Look, my HOA fees are about to go up $50. And I'll tell you what, like, look, I love the fact they cut my grass. I love the fact that I get to pay a little bit cheaper homeowners insurance, because I don't have to worry about the outside of my building, because we own a townhome. But that $50, I'm going to figure out what you're doing with my money. And,
right.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bring it up, like that's just straight up. I notice it. And that's the thing. Why don't, like, we as the American people need to sit down and notice that we are spending more over the past many years. We're spending trillions. I don't even know how many zeros are in trillions, but we're spending trillions more than we are getting back in tax dollars. And the interest that we're getting hit with because of all this debt is just, it's going to cripple us. So, the spending's we've got to do something. And I think, some of those countries you mentioned, Jesse, I think the people there are a little bit more mindful of their government's use of the money, and they hold their government accountable more. So I just think we need to, I'm fine with paying higher taxes so long as it's going to the right things.
Exactly.
Well, we can end it on something that taxpayers would have loved, or most taxpayers would have been okay with, at least, which is some sort of stipulation in regards to healthcare. Right, with healthcare being one of the bigger burdens on the everyday average American citizen. So I bring this up because Scandinavia, all of these countries, in Scandinavia and a lot of Europe actually, they have some sort of subsidized healthcare for their citizens that the citizens pay into. Canada actually has a very, very similar process. Now, this is news that's happened over like the last few days. Brian Thompson, the CEO of UnitedHealthcare, was shot right as he left a hotel room at night. And United has been going through their own set of controversy with a lot of like their with a lot of like their insurance policy holders, where their people or their the people who are paying into that system are not getting their healthcare cost reimbursed. So what's your guys' opinion on it? Like, because the opinion online through most people, even though like this guy did get murdered, it's like a sense of like vigilante justice.
Listen, health insurance, in my opinion, is a fucking scam. Yes. And the reason I say that is because like we literally live in a system where I know doctors personally that I can go up to them and, I can just be like, hey, I need to get checked out. I'm just going to pay you out of my pocket. I literally pay them out of my pocket, see them whenever I need to. And if I did the math one year and I was like, the amount of money I'm spending to pay for, personalized healthcare and seeing the doctor, it's like a fraction of the cost of what my monthly insurance bill would be. And guess what? The doctor's just saying like, look, pay me literally what the health insurance industry is paying him, because that's the craziest thing. These doctors are they have to set their billing rates high. So the health insurance companies pay them something like a livable wage. That's the only way I can make it make sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that insurance is in as a whole, whether it's health insurance, car insurance, property insurance, there's real issues as far as like payment of benefits are concerned. At the end of the day, these companies aren't the Red Cross, they aren't FEMA, they are for-profit endeavors. And because of that, they limit coverage when they honestly shouldn't have. And a lot of people get hurt. I'm definitely not a proponent for murder or assassinations, and that is indeed a crime, and they should not be pardoned for it. But it also is emblematic of how people really feel, where they think people like this to be evil, right? And then are they evil? Maybe. But I will say it's what they do in order to maximize shareholder value is messed up. Like right now, my wife has like chronic back issues, and United is our health insurance, which once again is a scam. They actually sent us a letter last week or 2 weeks ago saying that they're no longer covering because they think that we were in a car accident, even though we definitely weren't, and we told them specifically that we weren't, and we haven't been in a car accident. But they're just doing that because they're just like, oh, well, your back keeps hurting. I think it's a car accident. I'm not paying for it anymore. Here's our appeals process. Let me know. So what are you going to do in that interim? Let's pretend that they're going to approve my wife eventually. What are you going to do? She's just not going to have steroid injections. She's just not going to go to physical therapy. I take it personal because it's obviously my wife, but it's been like that always, back before Obamacare, it was a pre-existing condition thing, right? I think it's a pre-existing condition. Therefore, you materially misrepresented in the policy. Screw your cancer. Screw your lupus. Say what you want, but the Obamacare did get rid of that from happening. But now we're entering the situations where it's like, okay, well, I don't think it's medically necessary. So it's no longer pre-existing, but it's no longer medically necessary. And I think that I get it, because there might be doctors out there that are being evil. But if you really think that someone is pretending they weren't in a car accident, do an independent, medical examination, or something like that. Don't just randomly have some person crunching X's and O's and be like, oh, we've already paid for a few cortisone shots for this lady. No, just no. And I think that's messed up. And in my wife's situation is like smaller, but this is, there are people out there that are dealing with way worse, and it's just not fair.
That's really well said, man. I think that, when you look at a company like United and how they are placing priority on shareholder value. They're announcing record profits, especially, you know, over like the last quarter. I mean, you know, I'm so sorry to hear about like your wife's situation, but that's a situation that a lot of people have been dealing with in regards to United specifically. So of course, like all of us here, like, you know, we don't approve of like somebody getting murdered in cold blood, but there's a lot of anger and buildup, you know, amongst like, you know, amongst people in regards to these insurance companies. And this situation kind of encapsulates that.
For sure.
But, you know, what a great episode, man.
Thanks,
Such a great episode. Jesse, you know, thank you so much for coming on today. You were an incredible guest. We're going to leave Jesse's details for his new firm in the text below. If you like what you see or hear on this episode, leave those in the comments below. And until next time.
Don't get audited because you're not going to get a pardon.
Don't ever do anything that gets you in trouble.
Don't ever do anything that's going to get you in trouble. All right, guys. Peace.